everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today is another reading vlog, another series reading vlog, and I have 4 books for us in this one. I will be starting with a romance, and that will be The Goal by Elle Kennedy, the 4th book in the Off Campus series, and this is the final, couple book, because the last book is The Legacy, and that is kind of 4 little novellas, or I think stories or something about each of the couples. So this book follows Tucker and Sabrina, and you kind of find out at the end of the last book what their trope's going to be. And it doesn't really say what it is on the back, so I'm not going to go too into detail with it, but this will definitely be an interesting one. I know it's not one of my favorite tropes, but I've enjoyed the series a lot, so I'm hoping that this is a nice closeout to the final couple story, and then I'll get to read The Legacy and be done with this one. Then we're going to read Warstorm by Victoria Aveyard. This is the final book in the Red Queen series. I'm not going to read The Broken Throne or whatever the final book is because I think it's just novellas. I'm just going to end it after the 4th book. So Warstorm's our final book, and this kind of ended off with a good cliffhanger on the 3rd book. And I think some big things are going to happen in this one. There was something I thought was going to happen in the 3rd book that didn't, that I hope happens in this one. So we shall see, but very excited to be done with this series. Those are both series, actually all 4 of these series are ones that were on my series to finish or catch up on by the end of 2024. The next book is In the Weeds by B.K. Borison. This is the 2nd book in the Lovelight Farm series, and this follows Evelyn and Beckett, and Evelyn was the influencer from the 1st book. They came to the farm, and Beckett is the farmhand that works there, and this is going to be a second chance romance. So they had an encounter a long time ago, and then they meet each other again when she comes to the farm, and this is gonna, I think, be their second chance and focus on them. And then the final book is Dance of Thieves by Mary A. Pearson. This is the duology that I would like to finish by the end of the year. I've heard great things about this. I'm very excited to read this book, and I have really high hopes for it, so I'm really hoping it doesn't let me down, but I don't know too much about it, but I don't really want to know. We're just gonna go into it and we'll see what I think, but I just need to get started on it if I want to finish it by the end of the year. I know it's only 2 books, but I've got a lot of series and a lot of books that I want to finish before the end of 2024. So those are the 4 books. I will be reading them in that order, I believe. I will update you all when I make it far enough in the 1st book to have something to share. So update on The Goal. I'm about 140 pages in, and we have our basis for the story. So we've got Tucker, who is a forward on the hockey team from Texas, comes from a little bit of a not as affluential background as Dean. So he has a single mom who raised him and had to work 2 jobs to pay for him to play hockey and go to school and all that. And he wants to start up a business when he's done with school. And then we have Sabrina, who wants to be a lawyer, and she also comes from not the greatest situations family-wise. So we're learning a little bit about that, more about hers than his background and all of that. And hers is a little bit more precarious and not great. And I'm a little afraid that something bad's gonna happen there, but we'll see. And they just kind of meet in the bar one night, and there's an instant attraction. Things go from there, but she's so busy because she's working 2 jobs to help save money because she wants to go to law school at Harvard and isn't gonna have time to work when she's in her first semester there. So she's trying to save up as much money as she can now so that she can continue to pay her rent and have food money and all that kind of stuff. So doesn't have a lot of time, so she's not really looking for a relationship, but he's just trying to get her to give him a chance and relax a little and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't know that I was gonna like this one that much. I mean, I still have more than half the book left, so things could change, but I really like Sabrina. I like her personality because I can relate a lot to her personality and how she just tries to stay busy and tries to tell herself she doesn't have time to do some other things. And she's very driven and focused on a goal. So I understand, I relate a lot to that. So I really do like this so far. Tucker's a sweetheart. He has that southern sweetheart, darling, calls her darling, which is adorable. And I'm liking it so far. And this is taking place in the same timeline as the 2nd book. So the 1st book happened in its own timeline, and then right at the end of that one is when the 2nd book's timeline started. And then right at the end of the 2nd book is where Dean's story started, which is the 3rd book. And then this one is actually running parallel timeline-wise to Dean's story. So you're getting a little bit of understanding of where you are based on what he's saying about Dean and what's going on in his life. So they do kind of run in tandem with each other. So far, so good. I'm going to continue reading tonight. I probably won't finish this up tonight. It'll probably be tomorrow. But I don't know that I'll update again because we're kind of at the part where the romance is happening and, you know, there's going to be something that happens in the third act that makes them break up. It's a romance. They all follow the same overarching storyline. So I will update you guys tomorrow with final thoughts. Hey everyone, it's Monday afternoon. I just had a meltdown because I ordered books from Amazon and they came in 2 different packages. One was delivered by the post office, the other was delivered by UPS, and only one of the packages was here. So then I just had to go walk around my neighborhood looking for an address that was similar to mine, and I found it. And then the people didn't want to answer the door, and I was like, I'm not creepy, I just want my package. But anyway, I got them now. I'm in a little bit of a better mood, but still kind of angry that I had to go chase it down. Finished the goal today. This was not my favorite in the series, but probably not my least favorite. I want to say that The Mistake was probably my least favorite. I did like Sabrina, like I said earlier. I did really relate to her. I think that she has a personality that I can very easily relate to, and I did like that. And Tucker was just so sweet. I think the best part about tropes that are similar to this one is how the guy acts in them. So he was perfect. And that is the last couple for the off-campus series. I still have to read The Legacy, which is kind of like a giant epilogue from what I understand. And then I will eventually go into Briar U, which I didn't realize. I thought it was like different generation. I know that the new one, like the one with the grandma effect and the Dixon rule, I know those are like their kids, but I thought that there was more time in between this one and then the Briar U one, but it's not. Like, it's the first book, I guess, is Fitzy's. So I'm very excited for that. I love him. And it's, I guess, Summer, Dean's little sister, I'm assuming. I don't think it said her name, but based on the trope being a grumpy sunshine, I'm gonna guess that's what it is, and based on how things were said at the end of the goal. So I'm excited for that. But next book in this vlog will be Warstorm by Victoria Aveyard. This is the final book in the Red Queen series, so I will be finishing this series. Cannot wait. So can't really say much about what this is about because it's the 4th book and I don't want to ruin anything that happened in the previous ones. But like I've said in many other series vlogs, the whole main plot of this book is there's silvers and reds in this world, and the silvers have powers, the reds do not. And there's like a power struggle between them. The silvers basically rule over the reds and think they're useless and kind of use them to fight their battles and stuff like that. So it's like a whole rebellion versus the monarchy, essentially, because it is a monarchy, trying to fight for their rights. There is a romance in here. There was a little bit of a love triangle. There's a lot of nice family dynamics in here. There's found family, but there's also like family. So I do like that. I'm excited to see what the big finale will bring. So once I've made it far enough in that to know how I feel, I will circle back and give you all an update. Hey everyone, so I'm about 200 and some pages away from finishing Warstorm. This has been a very long book. I feel like this could have been a lot shorter. There wasn't a lot that happened at the beginning. I did have to like take about 100 pages or so to remember exactly how King's Cage ended, but I still am enthralled with what's going on here. Now that it's starting to pick up and now that we're getting to the point where like something's gonna happen, something has to happen to conclude this, it's getting more interesting and it's holding my attention more and I'm reading it faster. I was actually reading this very slowly towards the beginning, and I think it's just because I wasn't super interested in it until a little bit into it. But I'm hoping it's a good ending. Right now there's a few things that I'm quite frustrated with and I'm not sure how exactly it's going to be all tied up, but fingers crossed. I like the ending. We'll see. So when I'm finished with this, I'll come back and we'll talk about final feelings and we'll move on to the next book. All right, so I finished up Warstorm last night. I did not think that the ending of this book was satisfying, and I don't know if she did that because she wants you to read Broken Throne, which is like the novellas where she clears things up. I'm a little not happy about that because I was not planning on reading the novellas, but now I'm on the fence. Not gonna be something I like really focus on. I may eventually get to them, but I'm just gonna, in my mind, think that it goes one way, and we're gonna end it with that. I think that this was done well, except for the fact that there was a little bit too much back and forth fluff, I think, in there, that this could have been a little bit shorter and the same part of the story would have the same aspects of the story still would have been there. Like, this was unnecessarily long, I think. But yeah, I just like was not satisfied even after like the epilogue. I wish it was a little bit more of a concrete ending. If you've read it, you may know what I'm talking about. Like, it's not that the book didn't end. There were just things that weren't solidified in how they concluded. It's the best way to say it. So I liked it. I'm happy to basically be done with that series unless I decide to read the 5 novellas, but we'll see. Then I started In the Weeds by B.K. Borison. This follows Evelyn and Beckett, and this is essentially like a second chance romance. We kind of see a little bit of them in the first book in Lovelight Farms, and they had like a one-night stand. Never thought they'd see each other again, and then they came face to face in the first book, and this is kind of picking up. There's a little bit of, so far, like been a little bit of flashbacks to the first book, and then it's picking up a little bit after the end, like a few months, I want to say, after the end of Lovelight Farms, the book. Beckett's a little awkward. Like, I feel like I thought he was going to be awkward because he's a little bit like that in the first book, but a little bit too much right now for me. So we'll see if it picks up. I really like Evelyn, really like her. So that's what's kind of keeping it going. I'm only 100 pages in. It's only a 300-page book, so I'm basically a third of the way through the book. And it's going fast, but I just wish Beckett was a little less closed off, and it's because it's making things kind of awkward, but I think that's just supposed to be his personality. I don't love that part yet, but we'll see how it continues, and I will update you all probably just when I'm done, because I'm going to probably read the last 200 pages of this book pretty quick, but I'll catch up with you later. So I finished In the Weeds by B.K. Borison, and I didn't like Beckett as much as I thought I would as the MMC based on how he was in the first book. And I feel like he had some like social anxiety issues or like just sensory processing issues that she didn't explicitly talk about, but she implied enough that that was there. But I don't think it came until like, it wasn't obvious enough until the end of the book. So he did come off like really standoffish at first, which that's real life. Like, you don't always know that. So I understand that. But even towards the end, I just didn't warm to him as much as I thought I would. I really liked Evelyn, Evie, whatever you want to call her. But I thought I was going to like this one a lot more than I did. And I don't know if I went into it with like high expectations from their interactions in the first one. But I didn't hate it. It was good. It was still a very well told story. I did like their romance. Their personalities just didn't mesh as much as I would have liked. That one's done. And now to move on to the fourth and final book in the vlog. I'm going to be reading Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. And honestly, I don't know much about this. I just know that a lot of people have talked about it, and I do have the second book. So it's just a duology, so it shouldn't be too bad to get through two. And I know people like this. It's just, I've only read about 20 pages and I'm still not really sure what's going on, but it is a fantasy, so it will take a while. So there's like 4 different things here. So we've got a formidable outlaw family that claims to be the first among nations, a son destined to lead thrust suddenly into power. We've met him. 3 fierce young women of the Rattan, the Queen's premier guard, met them. We're just slowly meeting all of the characters, and there's just like a dark secret that is a threat to the entire continent. I am in the mood for a fantasy. I did just read Warstorm, but I think like the unsatisfying ending of that just makes me want to get into another fantasy pretty quickly, and it is getting closer and closer to fall. A lot of the books I'm planning on reading this month are still pretty heavily romance, but I am starting to sprinkle in more fantasy because that's where I'm vibing at right now, and then as it gets colder, I'll want more just fantasy and just thriller. So this should help be a good segue. I will come back later once I maybe understand what's going on. Okay, so update on Dance of Thieves, because I forgot to give one, and I've only got about 200 pages left. Don't really think I've talked too much about this, because I think the last time I updated, it was like, I had been 20 pages in. So essentially we have our 2 main characters, Kazi and Jace. So we've got our 2 main characters, we've got Kazi and we have Jace. And Kazi is essentially sent to this part of the kingdom to look for this criminal that escaped her queen. I think the guy did something and then like left, and the queen wants him back for retribution and all that. So she goes there and she has a run-in with the Patri, I think they call him, Patri, something like that, who is Jace. And he is basically like, he runs the town unofficially, like officially, unofficially. Because it's part of the kingdom, but they don't recognize the monarchy. So she has a run-in with him. And then they basically get themselves into a situation together, and then they kind of bond over that, and now it's like coming back to reality and dealing with things that happened. And there's a really nice romance, I think, intertwined with this. Like, there's a lot of politics and everything going on, and I'm not really sure what, like, the dark secret that is a threat to the entire continent is yet. I'm assuming that's gonna happen maybe towards the end of the book, so that when we go into Vow of Thieves, there's, like, another storyline to follow. But I really do like the characters in this book. Jace has, like, a huge family, like, a bunch of brothers, a bunch of sisters, and his mother, and they're just, like, the sisters are so medley, and I freaking love it. Like, the family dynamics in this book are great, and then Kazi has, like, 2 really good friends, and I really like their dynamic as well. So the characters in this book are just phenomenal, and the storyline has been interesting. Again, not too much has happened. There's just a lot of, like, build up, and we're, like, learning all the political problems and everything, and all the different types of people in this kingdom. But I'm enjoying it. I've got, like I said, about 200 pages left, and I'm gonna try to finish this tonight because I don't think I'm gonna want to go to sleep until it's done. This romance is hitting nice for me too, and I think what the issue is I've been reading a lot. I've been reading a lot of, like, contemporary romances, and they're just not hitting as hard for me right now, and I think it's just because I've read so many of them, it's gonna take one to, like, knock my socks off for me to be like, I'm really enjoying this. But I think the plot and the story and the fantasy parts of this intertwined with the romance are what's really making this one really enjoyable for me. So it's not, like, the best romance, but it's an enjoyable story. So I'm gonna finish this up, and then I'll come back and we'll close out the vlog. All right, time to wrap up this reading vlog. I started out this vlog reading The Goal by Elle Kennedy. This is the 4th book in the Off-Campus series, and it is the final book in, like, one couple's point of view, because the legacy, I believe, is, like, all of theirs, and that is the final book. This follows Sabrina and Tucker, and it has a trope that I'm not usually a huge fan of, but Elle Kennedy and Elsie Silver have both made me really enjoy the books that had it, and I think it's about how they write their main male character, because I think that's the biggest problem I have with enjoying a book that has that as a main trope. But I did like this couple. They were not my favorite couple. That will be Dean and Allie, but I did like this book. I like how it was written. I like how they were the final couple and how it kind of pulled everyone together at the end. I did enjoy that. So this was a 3.75 for me and 2 on Spice. Then I finished out the Red Queen Quartet with War Storm. This was a little too long, I think, for what it did and what the point of the book was. I did like how everything came together at the end as far as, like, the overarching war part of the story and the political part of the story. I did feel very unsatisfied with the personal side of the story in the end, and I did not want to have to go into the Broken Throne novellas, but I may have to at some point just because I was left very unsatisfied with how she ended the epilogue. So I'm not sure yet. We'll see. Because that's not a small book either. I think it's like five novellas. That might be something that I eventually just pick up, like, next year, or pick it up and then don't read till next year. But overall, I really liked this series. It was interesting. It was fun. It was, for the most part, fast-paced. There were parts of the 3rd and 4th book that I felt were a little redundant and a little slow and kind of dragged it out. But overall, a lot of the world building and a lot of the, like, political side of business did need to happen. So still enjoyed it. 4 stars and 1 spice. Then I read In the Weeds by B.K. Boris, and this is the 2nd book in the Lovelight Farm series. And this follows Beckett and Evie, Evelyn. And they are a second chance romance. You meet them in the 1st book. Beckett is the farmer on Lovelight Farms, and Evelyn is the social media influencer that comes to the farm for the competition in the beginning. And you find out that they have a history together. And Beckett's very, like, standoffish about it, and Evie doesn't really know how to act. And then she just leaves. And then that obviously doesn't get solved in the 1st book. So this one is about Evie kind of needing a break from the social media life and the influencing life, and she's trying to go back to the last place that she felt happy, and that it was Lovelight Farms. So it's kind of her trying to figure out what she wants to do with her life, why she's not happy with what she's doing, and also trying to rekindle what her and Beckett had, because they just had a very strong connection. And I did feel the connection for the most part. I didn't love how Beckett was written. I didn't mind him in the 1st book. I feel like this one made him a little bit too standoffish for me, and I get that that could be realistic. I understand that, but it just wasn't, he wasn't my favorite character in this book. So I gave this a 3.25 and a 1.5 on Spice. I'm happy I read it, and I will continue to read the series, but he was just not my favorite MMC that I've read in a while. Evelyn, though, she was badass. I liked her. Then I finished out this vlog with Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. This is the first book in the Dance of Thieves duology. And I did not read The Remnant Chronicles. Is that the first one? Yeah, I did not read that because I just didn't care to read it. I just wanted to read this duology. And I thought that the first 100, 200 pages were a little slow, but this is a 500-page book, and it is the first book in a fantasy duology. So she did have to build the world a little bit, but she really had to build up the characters and who they were and their relationships to each other and what is going on in that world currently. I didn't feel confused about it. I just felt like it took a little longer to get into, but the last 300 pages of this book, I did not want to put it down. I loved the story. I loved how it moved. It moved quickly. It made sense. It flowed nicely. The relationships between the characters happened very organically, and I felt for them, and the romance in this book hit so hard, and I don't know if it's because the last romances I read, they just didn't do it for me. I don't know. They weren't bad, but they weren't like, they didn't like grip me like I like a romance too. So I don't know if that's why this one just did, and I don't know if it's the way that they met and why they had a connection in this one that just, I really liked how it was written. So this was a 4.5-star book for me, and I'd say 1 on Spice. It alluded more than it actually talked. So 1.5 maybe, but I'm leaning more towards like 1 on the Spice on this one. So that was a pretty successful reading vlog. I finished a series for the most part. I don't know if I'll read the novellas. And made progress on 2 and then started a duology. So these are all books that I wanted to finish before the end of the year. So to update on my series that I want to finish or catch up on by the end of 2024, let me grab my notebook. So out of the 35 books that I needed to read from the video that I did, I've completed 8 of those books so far. I did 4 of them, I think, last month. Yes, I read 4 books last month from this list, and then I just added another 4. So that is extremely exciting because it is still the beginning of August, and I have a few of those books scheduled to be read this month. So I will make a little bit more of a dent in it, but I'll just keep updating. I'm going to probably do a series vlog every month, and then beginning of December in my TBR video, I'll probably go over it as well because that's the month that I want to finish everything out that's not done. Making progress. We're down to 27 books left, which is completely doable for me, and I'm happy to get some of these crossed off at the TBR. So thank you so much if you've made it this far for watching, and let me know if you've read any of these books, read any of these series, are interested in them, what your favorite book is in these series, if you've read any of them, and I hope to see you all in the next video.